In Percy Jackson, Kronos needed a body to become powerful. In Heroes of Olympus, Gaia became weaker the moment she took one. In mythology, Gaia is unbeatable, the earth itself. But in Heroes of Olympus, she lasts minutes. That's not a power problem, that's a storytelling mistake. And the reason why says everything about how villains work and fail. Hello there, and welcome to today's video, where I'm going to be starting a brand new series called Autopsy of a Villain. Now this series is going to be about breaking down and analyzing villains throughout fiction to understand why they didn't work. For this first video, we're going to be examining Gaia from the Heroes of Olympus series. Gaia seems like the perfect villain to escalate to after Kronos. She's a primordial representation of the earth itself. She's older than the gods. Older than the Titans even. And as an antagonist, she asks our heroes the crucial question. How do you fight the ground beneath your very feet? Only, that isn't really the case. The reality is that Kronos, the prior villain of the series, took 5 books to finally defeat in battle after battle. They required our heroes to grow and make sacrifices in order to earn their victory. But when Gaia finally awakens fully, she's underwhelming, and defeated almost immediately in circumstances that are underwhelming, to say the least. But here's the thing. Gaia didn't fail because she was underpowered. She failed because she was miscast by the story. And to truly understand why Gaia failed, we need to understand what kind of villain she was always supposed to be. Now, before we examine Gaia as she's shown in the Heroes of Olympus series, I think it's important to understand how Gaia is represented in mythology, and why that was the perfect base for her characterization in the series. See, in Greek mythology, Gaia is a primordial being. She's not a conqueror the way Kronos and Zeus are. Instead, she's a constant, the ground beneath your feet, a being of immense patience, a being who endures no matter what. She's an inevitability. The gods may rule over domains, but Gaia is the domain. And this is important, because when you extrapolate this mythological view of Gaia into a fictional story, you realize that Gaia doesn't need to win. Time wins for her. I mean, she may want to influence events and speed things up a little bit, but she never directly takes a role. She sets things in motion and gets others to do her dirty work for her. And with that in mind, if Gaia is going to be ported over into a story of good versus evil, then scheming, manipulation, and slow building pressure should be her primary tools. That should be the way Gaia exerts influence and exercises her agency in a story. So, with this mythological view of Gaia firmly set, let's quickly take a look at how Kronos was used in the Percy Jackson series. Now, the reason we're looking at Kronos is because he was perfectly utilized in the original series, and he'll offer a fantastic comparison point for why Gaia failed in her role as a primary antagonist. Now, Kronos in the original Percy Jackson series is incredibly limited when we first meet him. He's essentially a disembodied voice, dependent on others to exercise his will in the real world. In other words, he starts the story in an incredibly vulnerable place. He has very little agency, and so he's forced to rely on Luke Castellan to speak on his behalf, to rally others to his cause, and to execute his plans. And this is incredibly important. See, Luke acts as Kronos' avatar, allowing us as the audience and the characters within the story to assign actions and outcomes to Kronos. It was Kronos who poisoned Thalia's tree, despite Luke being the one to actually damage said tree. All of Luke's actions are done in order to further Kronos' 2 goals. The first is regaining a physical form, and the second is using that new physical form to wage war on the gods and overthrow them. Throughout the story, Kronos faces setbacks and defeats, but crucially, he may be losing a battle, but he makes up for it by gaining positioning. Every minor obstacle or antagonist he throws at our heroes furthers his grand plan, and I can't say the same thing for Gaia. The first and most immediate problem Gaia has in the Heroes of Olympus series is a lack of presence. Sure, every now and then her face appears in the mud and she speaks to our heroes, but it's just not enough. Kronos occasionally spoke to Percy through his dreams, taunting him and pushing him in various directions. And Gaia does the same. The only problem is that she lacks a consistent avatar like Luke was for Kronos. There is no one single being constantly battling the heroes who can act as a representative for Gaia. Someone whose dastardly deeds can then be directly attributed to the big bad in a very real and visceral way. And the consequence is that Gaia really has a lack of presence throughout the books. I mean, she's spoken about often enough, sure. Just about every minor villain and giant talks about their service to Gaia, but we never truly get to experience Gaia and her impact in the story. Now, the second issue is Gaia's motivation. Doesn't really make sense. I mean, the gods imprisoned her children, and so she wants revenge. But, the gods are technically part of her family too, right? She even has kids with Poseidon. And even if you want to discount that and say she only cares about her immediate family, I guess, and not her grandchildren, the gods, or the children of the gods, well then why did she punish Orion and Damocin so harshly? Why exactly has she waited so long to avenge the Titans? Sure, she sent the giants the first time, but what, she just gave up after that? She decided to wait until the Titans were beaten a second time before doing anything? Why didn't she try and help them in the Percy Jackson series in their battles against the gods if she cared so much? All of these questions, coupled with the lack of a singular avatar, means that her motivations come across as muddled and confusing. And obviously, the meta answer is that Raiden needed to escalate the threat after Kronos. But all of these questions remain unanswered in the story, and leave Gaia feeling artificial and reactive, rather than intentional and proactive. The giants themselves present Gaia's final issue. If you want to make the argument that escalation required Gaia to have multiple avatars in the giants, as opposed to Kronos' single avatar in Luke, then the giants truly failed in their role. See, Luke felt dangerous at all times. He felt like a wily and charismatic foe that Percy could never quite put down. The giants, on the other hand, feel flat and boring, devoid of personality and easy to defeat. And the giants are defeated in every book in the Heroes of Olympus series, before ultimately being resurrected to fight the heroes again in the final battle. It makes them feel weak and hollow, and contributes to the lack of time pressure felt throughout the series. And the result is that Gaia feels postponed rather than inevitable. But, on the subject of that final battle, it actually reveals a massive mistake Raiden made with Gaia. In the final book, Rick Riordan treated Gaia like a final boss in a video game. Her awakening and taking of physical form is framed as a victory, but it shouldn't be. It doesn't make sense why she would want a physical form in the first place. Kronos needed a body to regain his lost power, but Gaia loses her power because she took on a form. When she didn't have a body, Gaia was omnipresent. She could be anywhere, appear to anyone at any time. Taking on a body just diminishes her power and contains her, making her targetable, allowing the heroes an unearned and ultimately unsatisfying victory. And honestly, the mechanics to get her a body were just... they were mechanically arbitrary, right? Percy gets a nosebleed from fighting the giants, and all of a sudden, Gaia's back. It's almost as anticlimactic as Piper then using her absolutely broken charm speed to put Gaia to sleep. Click the card, see how I solved that problem. Well, up there, I guess. Now, this final battle only serves to further weaken Gaia's character. Willingly giving up almost unlimited power in order to do what? Punch our heroes herself? I mean, it goes against everything this character was set up to be in the myths and in the story itself. It invalidates the whole series and leads the ending to be an underwhelming anticlimax that fails to satisfy readers. There is no earned desperation, no lasting changes or consequences, and it never feels like Gaia was truly cornered. She was written into an uncharacteristic and self-defeating decision. Later books even go on to trivialize her defeat, making her feel even weaker and more underwhelming in retrospect. See, Gaia doesn't fail because she's outsmarted. She fails because the story just needed to end. And that's the cardinal sin of an overarching villain. So how should Gaia have been written? Now, Gaia throughout the Heroes of Olympus series should have been an omnipresent threat. One filled with an endless patience, and a villain that was harder to affect as the series went on. Once she understood what the heroes were like, what they valued, what their flaws were, it should have felt like she was playing them like a piano. We needed a scene of Gaia manipulating the new prophecy to her advantage, or engineering a choice for our demigods to make that cost the heroes something permanent. When we see her communicating with the heroes or her subordinates, it should be rare and feel incredibly dangerous. If our heroes catch her in these moments, we as the audience need to understand that her taking on a physical form is clearly a mistake. And at the end of it all, her defeat should have lasting consequences for the world and our heroes. It should change the very rules of the world, rather than just, reset the status quo. That's actually something the Percy Jackson books did very well. And that's how you write a terrifying and captivating villain. And that's exactly what Riordan did the first time around with Kronos. But Gaia fails on nearly every single level. In the end, it's clear that Gaia wasn't too weak or too strong for the story being told. Instead, she was quite simply misunderstood by the author writing her. She was wasted as an overarching villain and truly deserved the opportunity to shine as a silent manipulator, pushing our heroes to their limits. Understanding why and how Gaia fails is integral to understanding why the Heroes of Olympus series couldn't live up to Percy Jackson. And now, with this video, it becomes a lot clearer how Gaia needs to be written when I fix the Heroes of Olympus series. Because here's the thing. Gaia was never meant to be slain. She was meant to be cornered. And once you understand that, well, Heroes of Olympus becomes a very different story. So, just on a really quick, just little side tangent, I think that is one of the things about Gaia, just to kind of pull back to my conversation earlier, but this whole idea of consequences after the story. In the Percy Jackson series, the original 5 books, once they defeat Kronos, there are tangible changes for the world, right? So, for example, Percy basically tells the gods, you're a bunch of arsehole parents and you need to change how you run things. Paraphrasing. It leads to kids being claimed more often. It leads to minor gods, being recognized as Olympians. It leads to those who supported the Titans, kind of being forgiven, essentially. This was it's such a tangible victory for Percy outside of the personal stuff of saving his friends, getting with Annabeth, that kind of thing. And it's something that Heroes of Olympus is really lacking when you really stop and think about it. I can't really think of any lasting consequence other than the fact that, hey, there's a Roman camp now. And I think that's what Gaia really needs to do, and I'm very interested to try and bring that story to you guys with my whole Rebuilding a Hero and a little sneak preview, Rebuilding the Story series. Now, these formats aren't specific to Percy Jackson. I'm planning on expanding this throughout a very wide range of, fandoms, IPs, properties, movies, books, all of that. But for now, I'd like to know, who would you like to see an Autopsy of the Villain on next? Who would you like to see, Rebuilding a Hero on next? What did you think of my dissection of Gaia and this new format in general? Let me know in the comments down below, and thank you for watching.